Okay, here we are starting game turn 2 of the Conquistadors. Friday, obviously, I go dancing. The weekend passed, and I didn't do shit. My video game addiction, whatever, and my weird sleeping schedule has just kept me from coming up here. Oh, I hope I don't have the heat on up here all this time. No. Feels warm, but okay. So what's happened in the game? Not a whole hell of a lot. Each of the Conquistadors has made a little bit of an inroad in. There's been a little bit of squabbling over here in terms of, you know, they don't actually interact with each other. They're just playing cards against each other to make their jobs harder. Some difficulty establishing things. The biggest thing was an assassination against Cortez, which got me not Pounce, but this Pedro de Cieza de Leon. All right, second turn is something special. The guy with the weakest leader of all went first, so he does not, he'll get last pick out of everything. What we're going to do is we're going to take the deck of all the remaining Conquistadors, and each player, and let me see, the order is, I think, him, in terms of what they get to pick. And the whole set, all the browns and the reds are together here, which makes life a little easier. I've marked the red ones with a B or the brown ones with a B, just so that they could be pulled out from that first set. But, you know, the best guys are all in the red set, so nobody really cares. This is a hard decision as to what to do. There's two things you could do. You could combine your expeditions and make one grand expedition, and in this case I'm looking at Alvarado here, to operate better in the area you're in. If the area you're in kind of ends up sucking, then it's easiest to just sort of like put that expedition aside and say screw it and start a completely new one. There's one other factor. Of course, by turn 2, it's not going to suck that bad, right? I mean, maybe you didn't find your town or something, and so you can't go deeper into the land. There might be cases, though, where you are completely cut off by turn 2, where you kind of have to edge your way out. Still, a bigger expedition might be, you know, just as capable of getting to a new location as starting a new one and ignoring your old one. And your old one will be sitting out there, potentially a target for problems. It's got to get food or it's going to starve to death, and that'll affect your governor index and whatnot. But there is one other thing here. I have a legend, El Dorado here. And the question is, hey, is that worth chasing down? Because I can put somebody here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, or up to here. I'd get a couple of shots at El Dorado in Florida. But I probably don't want to go chasing it right away, which means I want to hold the card because I don't want to expose the card. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think there's any reason not to put your two Conquistadors together at the beginning of play. Later in play, if you draw a Conquistador, because all of these go in the deck, and all of this goes back in, starting next turn. Later on, it might make sense to say, oh, I drew a Conquistador and a legend. Maybe I'll play them together at this point. But right now, I just don't buy it. Now, there's something I don't understand because I never got to it, and I'm going to have to look this up, which is when you draw a Conquistador, how do you play it? And I'll worry about it later because it doesn't affect things right now. But reinforcements normally come in before the beginning of the turn, or right at the beginning of the turn, before you do initiative and whatnot. But maybe when you have a card, it's your action card play, or an action card play, and therefore, happens during your turn, and you roll all your stuff then. That makes sense, but I'm not positive that that's how you do it. So, I just don't see starting a second Explorer or Conquistador down here, except for there's this. This guy, whatever he finds, is going to be a certain amount of treasure. And the smaller my force, the better off I am. Now, I have a shitty rally value. So if I brought in somebody with him, like De Soto here, or Cordoba, or Alano, but De Soto, has value in everything else. He actually is probably the remaining good guy. I'm going to start a different expedition anyway. The reason is because I've got to divide up my treasure, and whatever I find with him will be fine, and I feel like there's limited capabilities for me to do stuff up on this side. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a hell of a lot of table space here. And if we crowd things together, things are going to get unpleasant. One thing I can do is I can move this. That frees up quite a bit. But yeah, I'm going to bring him in as another one. And as this is a reinforcement, we go through the same process we went with the other. We roll funding. Now at this point, we've got a modifier. It's only one die, and we are the white guy, I think. Oh no, I'm looking at these. We're that color, which I think is indeed white. It doesn't really look white to me. It looks kind of pale blue, but it isn't. Is it? No, the pale blue is up here. That's very different. Governor's index is 0, so I'm not modified there. So it'll be on the reinforcement side of the table. I roll, and I get only 9 points with him. This is one of the reasons why reinforcing makes sense, because 9 points isn't going to get me a lot. Let's see what I buy. Myself a 17-point team, only 2 horses. I could give up 2 infantry or give up the artillery bonus and get a different horse. Don't know about that. Maybe. 3 horses is just so potent. Of course, infantry weakens, like having less troops total weakens me. But that's going to cost me 17 of my 18 points. That means I'm going to go 8 more bucks in debt. So my debt goes up to 15 here on this table. And I may hold the Eldorado card in order to make sure that I have at least 1 legend to go after with him. But yeah, my feeling is that I have little enough here that maybe it makes sense for me to go after the legends. That means this guy's next. Got to make my same kind of thinking with him, and I think most of them are going to gather their groups. But again, the problem is the little enough is also if I'm not going to get a hell of a lot, I'm not going to be pushing on deep with him. I don't know, but I feel like I'm kind of cut off here, and going down this way is going to be painful. So I'm going to have to sail him somewhere, and that may allow me to gather these together. I might as well get as much coin, as much gold share as I can out of him, which means a smaller force. And I could have done this with Alvarado here. He could have taken De Soto, who gives him a better rally value and complements him nicely. Here, Balboa is going to take Juan Velasquez de Leon because it gives him that better combat value in his expedition. So he's got every value at 2. That's really, you know, nice. Does mean I'm going to be bringing in more troops. Probably not going to take out more loan because of it. However, I have this powerful patron card. It's the only thing it's useful for. So I will be getting +2, and my color is this kind of palish green, which I think is this. Which is on the 0. So we roll a 4. That's only going to get us 8. We didn't do as well as the other guy. 8 to me means 2 more horses. Just hope my artillery doesn't get knocked out. If it does, it's problematic. I just put that here. Do I want to take out any loan for additional forces? Not really. This gives me a nice cav force here. I've got both my conquistadors together. I look for the dude. And I'm going to put him on this to indicate that he's with that expedition. Again, though, you know, the coloration, the fact that these things are colored by who they are, like by their name, essentially, and which deck of cards that Conquistador comes in, it really doesn't help in terms of play because there's a bunch of red counters on the board. Well, that makes me think the red player should have it. I really wish instead that there were, you know, counters for like Conquistador 1, Conquistador 2, and you know, if you really have to, and given that they didn't put in a game turn marker, but you would have Conquistador 1, Conquistador 2 markers to put on top of each of the cards or whatever. That would actually use less counters than 1 per every named Conquistador. But how many, you know, it depends on how many you have per player. So the first couple players would probably need more counters than like players 4 and 5, just because there's going to be more conquistadors. Yeah, there's more opportunities to start new conquistadors in a smaller number of players. Here's something interesting. If you're playing in a small number of players, and yeah, you're playing with 1 board instead of 2 or whatever, but you're not getting as many actions as you are over all the players, right? So, because in each impulse, each player gets 1 action. So it's not like, yeah, sure, I get more conquistadors in my hand, but I don't get any more opportunities to use them than I would in a larger number of players. I just have more places where maybe they'd be of value. And if I can park one in a friendly city, then I can use another one, you know. Green decided to coordinate their forces here. No, that's Almagaro. I can't look for the green counter, which would, again, be the reasonable thing to do. I have to look for the name, which is a lot harder to spot on the map. And De Soto is joining him. I got a shitty roll, but I had another card that would help, a +1 in this case. Ended up taking out a debt to get myself from $7 to $8 and build myself 2 cav. To add to that force. He's operating down here. Now, we're on the 2 people who got kind of the best positions in the game, in terms of the leaders, who also took the best locations in terms of richness. Pizarro pushing down deeper into the Andes here. The more risky positions, it's harder to get places, and what was Cortez, but is now a really shitty leader, and he's going to have a shitty buddy with him down here in the Mexico region. 2 players, and it's all the brown cards that are left. Nobody wanted a brown card. They suck. The remaining two players, Pizarro, both joined their expedition. For Pizarro, it was a hard call because Pizarro is a good leader. I don't have any gaps I need to fill in. I took someone who's got a 1 in everything. That means he's okay if I want to substitute him in combat or whatever. Might have made sense to take a 2-point combat leader if there was one available. I didn't, but I don't know if there was. I don't think so. I think the only 2-point combat leader was used. So this was sort of the best option. If Pizarro dies, I've got at least someone who is somewhat capable. But this is the thing. Everybody's been kind of taken. Any further conquistadors are going to be kind of shitty. Either the replacements, which are really shitty, or the dregs from there. Now, for the Cordoba team, for the Cortez team, I picked Cordoba, and I replaced his counter on the map because he's now the leader of the expedition, really. Between him and Cieza de Leon, he has a number for everything. Cieza has a diplomacy rating, Cordoba has all the other ratings. And I can use the leader of my choice to handle that. One nice thing about having a couple of conquistadors in a single location. So only one person went with the split party. The split party to me is really an iffy thing. He's also the only guy who had one of these legends. However, they're going to show up. You know, it's not like somebody else couldn't put one there in the hopes of finding something. But, you know, Pizarro could be down here and he could split his team and send, you know, De Leon forward to go chase into the rainforest or whatever after one of these legends. I think these legends are going to be harder to get to than the ones over here, especially than the ones here, which, you know, you don't even have the desert to cope with. Okay, so now we go to discards, and I'm going to keep the player order the same until we hit the initiative phase. Honestly, the stuff that's happening right now, there is no player order to it, so maybe I'll just make decisions independently. I'm always worried that decisions will influence each other, but theoretically, I mean, I know a number when somebody discards their cards. So I could see some people, like, I don't know, holding out to see, hey, are they holding a handful of maliciousness? Because if they are, I will. You know, that kind of thinking. But if they're throwing everything, that probably means, but I'm not even sure you can really say that kind of stuff while you're playing this. Like in your head. I don't know that you can say it with any certainty. You can certainly say it. Fair distribution in terms of discards, you know, like Pizarro threw the rest of his cards away, whereas some players kept 4, I think. 4, I think, was the most that anyone kept. But, you know, that's a facet of, hey, what did you draw initially? You might have kept some cards because they became useful, like things that help with morale hits or stuff. That has become useful on this turn, and you really want it. What was really interesting was this guy. Now he's getting rid of cards that are useful. One is this Narrow Defile. Okay, this is a nasty card to the Spanish horse. You know, I could screw with someone, great. Those I tend to discard simply because they're not going to definitely help me, and they might just piss somebody off if I play it. But I had to throw away a card that I kind of find useful, Rediscovery, so I could open this space back up. Now that space doesn't particularly help me, but I'm in kind of a tricky position here, where if I don't find anything here, I really could use that card. But my other cards were so nice. You know, I'm actually, I think the hell with that. I'm going to get rid of a trade goods instead, because that Rediscovery is really kind of an especially for him, it's kind of a break glass thing. But he's not the only person who's got potential problems. Down here, there is all along the Peruvian area or whatever. Is problematic because it's so thin A lot of the board is thin, and there aren't a lot of connections between things. So this looks like a useful card, but then he has things like Doctor, Poison Darts, which is a better nastiness. You know, I could get rid of that, but it could kill a Pizarro or something. So that's of value. Indian Uprising, that can really fuck things up. Priest, which is good for the rally. I'm going to need that. Bad Translation, nastier anti-diplomacy. I got a lot of nastiness here, but I got the letter to the governor, which I can screw somebody over if they have morale hits when it's my turn. So just, he's holding on to a handful of nastiness. I don't know, probably should hold the trade goods because he's going to piss everybody off with the way he goes. One thing to notice is how quickly the deck runs through in this many players, because you have to throw away 2 cards each turn. You have whatever you play, and then, you can throw away whatever you had left from the last turn. So there's the possibility of each player throwing a total of 12 cards by this point into the deck. Now, in less players, that's going to move around more slowly. I don't know how much it matters. The deck is kind of a big random pile, like it is in games like Geronimo that I brought up. However, there might be specific cards, and you might be of an opinion of, I know there's going to be a reshuffle next turn. I don't want this card in the deck next time. I don't necessarily want to play it, but I don't want anybody else to have it. Where if you know the commonality of certain cards and whatever, you might make different choices. So that's going to put me on initiative, and I'm just going to be rolling dice and resetting these. And again, I'm not going to do roll-offs for players. Just going to roll who's first, who's second. It just works easier that way. Order is set. It's going to be white, green, pale green, almost white, actual green, red, blue. Yeah. And I think I'm going to take me a little bit of a break because my pipe's down and batteries are okay, but I feel like I've done a lot, and I need to burn some. I need to gain some play time on my computer game because I'm in the midst of an event where I'm failing miserably. Now, I've already given up on the event, on the main purpose of the event, but there's secondary goals that I could take that are of some worth. Bits of information that would be useful in terms of, hey, what's your order of play when you're looking at your cards? Just like early in the game when you're first taking your reinforcements or whatever, or later reinforcements, it would be helpful to know what your cards are. But you don't. At the beginning of play, you don't know a damn card you might have. All you know is the deck exists, right? On the second round, you might have held some cards, like this guy held a legend, and that is part of what decided him to start his new Conquistador off to the side. But since he has initiative, having held this card was a good idea. It might not have been, because everybody might take a rally action rather than, risk greater morale damage. Of course, one morale hit isn't that bad. But what he's going to do is he's going to play against Almagra. I'm sorry. I want to add extra syllables in there, of disgruntled soldiers. Now, there's nothing that directly counters it. I could put like a bonus on there, I guess. Nope. I could do a re-roll, I guess. But I'm going to roll with one extra bonus on it. If I roll a 5 or a 6, I kill one of his units. That's all that happens. It's not very impressive, but I held the card for that reason. And now I guess I'm gonna take my turn. I have a local guide. That could be useful. Not as an asset. I'm down here, Alvarado. And again, you know, I'm the red-bordered guy along with the other 4 red-bordered guys. Really a horrible decision. I'm sorry I keep harping on it, but it just doesn't work. I mean, sure, there aren't a lot of pieces on the board. You can remember where you are, but it's just an obnoxious choice, especially if you walk away from the game for a little while. And playing solo, of course, makes it worse, too. Okay, so this will give me a +1 to a discovery attempt. I'm going from a town into a 2. I don't know which is better. 1 to 3 doesn't work. So I've got to kind of go around this way. Once I get this, I could try from here, but then who cares? Okay, so I'm going from a town at 2 to a 2, and that's no problem. And I'm going to play the local guide, am I? It's a level 2. I actually don't care that much right here. So I'm going to hold on to that local guide because I have another shot here, and I can double around or whatever. So I'll just roll at level 2 at even. And, you know, this guy may be pissed off. He may do something about this. Got poison darts. That is only on diplomacy. Yeah, I held a couple of bad diplomacy cards, but nothing for discovery like an ambush or something. Not that I'm sure, you know, I might want to hold it. And we roll a 4. That gets us another town. That's the best we were going to do. Oh, no, we could have gotten a city off the +1. But it's not really worth it. And we have to stop there with no effect. Now, I could have rallied instead. That would have been wise, perhaps. Or sought food with a diplomacy. Might have been wise. It's not absolutely necessary yet. And if I get to a city, doing diplomacy at a city is more valuable, because I might get an allied city or something there. And I'm only on the first impulse, so it makes sense. And that'll get me to that guy who has lots of yellow pieces. I mean, you know, how can I tell who it is? Well, I look there. I don't know where he is on the board. He's over here, I guess, because I seated him here. But he's got yellow pieces here and kind of greenish things there. It's just so many of the graphic decisions, again, like in many Compass games, were not well thought out. There has to be better ways to handle this kind of stuff, and yeah. That's generally the developer's job, because, you know, the designer is so involved in the game that and playing it so much and you know, so connected to it that the flaws just don't show up to them. And honestly, this can happen with a developer too if they're too involved in it. They've got to be a little away. They can't just be, you know, constantly. They can't be a co-designer. Essentially, that's not the role of a developer. And Balboa pushes on, finds a town there. Again, rather than trying to, for him, recovering the morale hit's a bad idea because he's in a hostile town. That's too likely to cause him problems, right? Did I fight a battle there? I should have. I don't remember. I think I must have, but I certainly should have. In particular, Pizarro didn't interfere here for the reason that, you know, I actually would like Balboa to go a little further in to find his empire there if he has to or whatever, although I don't want him to hit it. So I will probably throw something nasty at him when he goes into a 3 space, if I have anything. Agro is not happy about what happened. He's going to have some of this guy's, Alvarado's, forces write letters to the governor and sit and whine about it. And that'll drop his governor index down. to a 0. That's the first thing. The second is I have a doctor. Doctor will remove my morale hit. I couldn't do this ahead of time. It's an action card, so I had to play it on my own turn. So that solves that problem. And now here I am in a town. I'm going into a 2 space. Do I have anything I want to play on a 2 space? I do not. This guy's getting kind of pissed at him. If I had an ambush or something, I might play it. Although I'd rather hold it for the 3 space. And yes, I'm going into more detail. I really didn't intend to, but I feel like there's certain decisions here that I want to highlight for whatever reason. That's a town next to me, that's fine. So I roll a 4, I get another town. Carl made a hard choice here. He has, abilities. He could rally. He could have done diplomacy. But again, I don't really want to do it in a town. I want to do it in a city where I can gain an ally. The morale hit, well, maybe I can clean up more than one if I need to. Screw it, I'll keep going. So I push into this space. Now, unlike Pizarro, Balboa doesn't really want Pizarro doing well. It's not that Pizarro wants Balboa doing well, but he wants him going further. Plus, Pizarro's entering a 3 space. Those are more dangerous. So it's time for an Indian ambush. Can't play betrayal. That doesn't help me. These don't help me. And I will probably play a tactical advantage on this. Now, we have to look up. There isn't a place that tells you. This would be kind of useful on the card to tell you, because there's plenty of space here, how many units are drawn for the Indian attack. Of course, that creates the, there are games that do that, but it creates the possible danger of straying from what the rule book says, right? So, the cards could have one piece of information and the rule book could have another. And that is a problem. Unfortunately, I would say for ease of play, I would suggest putting it here if there's space. It doesn't, for one thing, I'm holding the card and can make my decision based on that instead of give me the rule book and let me figure out, do I want to go into this space? Now, I know 3s are better than 2s, which is one of the reasons. So a level 3 or 4 space is going to be 3 units, which immediately attack. The Indian units will be doubled on the first round only, and horse units do not get their initial attack. So I will be facing 20, 35, 40, doubled is 80. It's nasty. This happens before the discovery check is made. I put this here so they get first shot. Now let's see if Pizarro has anything he can do about it. This can't be played. It's from a designated expedition, not from the Indians that you run against. Painted warriors would hurt me. I have a mano da Dios, which I will consider because that gives me +2, or it allows me to re-roll one of my own dice. But let's take a look at what we're facing here. Okay, so I'm facing, what did I say, 35, 40, 80. 80 and it gets to attack first before the other side gets to roll on this round. Okay, so 80 puts me on the 60 plus. You roll 2 dice. I have morale hit, but not enough. Yeah, this is nasty. And Mano de Dios couldn't be used on this. It's not my own die. So I take 2 hits at the Indian player's suggestion or decision. So I'm going to take out a horsey and a cannon. Now, I do get my swing back. These are still here and, just look like blanks, which is a pain in the ass. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 40, 46, 49, plus 1 for the cannon, plus 3 for Pizarro. This is difficult. So I'm at plus 4 on the die roll. I said 49. Oh, that's shitty. 46, 49, yeah. Just misses a table. I'm at plus 4. Plus 4 is pretty damn good. I'm going to get 3 hits. That's going to more or less wipe these guys out. I'm not going to play my Mano de Dios as a bonus yet. If I get a shitty roll, though, I will. But instead, I get an amazing roll, so I get 4 hits. 1, dead. 2, 3, I wipe them out. The Conquistadors recover all their units that are wounded. Because they're wearing armor. At the end of the battle. So that didn't do anything. You can see, these Conquistador forces can handle a pretty mighty looking Indian force with all kind of advantages going in favor of it. That's going to put me back on discovery. More stuff could happen here. Someone else wanted to be a dick. I want to look at my cards because, and I could play the Mano de Dios for this, I don't want to fail here. I'd have to walk a long ways around to make my way back to this 4. So Empire would be really nice. All right, so what do I have? I'm going, well, I won't get Empire here, but I'm going with a level 3 with a town next to it. Unfortunately, that's a -1 right off the bat. Do I want to drop a +2 on there? Because a town will fuck me up over here. Whereas a city will give me a 50-50 shot. But bad stuff could happen to me. Yeah, I'm okay not finding an empire yet, although it's a long ways to the next empire space. I really want the empire. Yeah, let's improve our chances, I guess. Now, I could do 2 things. I could either, I've got the card in here somewhere. I could either, I'm at -1 on level 3. You know, I'm going to keep it and use it as a reroll, because it guarantees me a city if I don't, but that way I get to hold it and use it on the next turn. Oh, I just missed. I get a town. It's a 50-50 chance. Yeah, I'm gonna play that to get a reroll. With the +2, I guarantee, I almost guarantee, I still had a chance of failure. I get another 3, it doesn't help me, I find another town. which sucks because, you know, this would be my empire space. Now he's got three empire spaces real close to each other. So in a sense, he's got a chance of finding an empire more quickly than Pizarro does. Pizarro's going to either have to cut through here or work around the long way. Cutting through seems to make the most sense, but then that gets me down to here for the next chance at finding an empire. So that's kind of painful, to tell you the truth. Alba, who just showed up, is playing this Voyagers of Fortune. It gives him an extra foot unit. You know, yeah, sure, I'm building up my army. That may not be a wise thing in terms of division, but there's also survivability, and having a big force is awesome. Beyond that, I've got a problem. I'm sitting on a one space. I could rally. I can't find food. I look at some of my other cards. Hostile chief, that's against diplomacy. Disgruntled soldiers. I could screw somebody over a little bit, but I'm not sure who I want to do. So 3 of my 4 opponents have a morale hit on them. If somebody pushes forward and finds something good, then they didn't rally, and I can play this against them. So I'm going to hold off on it, because my only option on this board is this guy, and he's really not interfering. Indian Uprising, this is a little different than the ambush. You play this against towns and cities. Again, the information's not on the card. You got to hunt it. It's in a different area of the rule book. Not that that's terribly important. It feels like there should be information on the player aid, or preferably on the fucking action card that tells you, you know, what you get. But it's like, I don't even remember. I think it's 1 unit in a town or 2 units. 1 unit for a town, 2 for a non-imperial, 3 for an imperial city or capital. I could draw 2 units for any Indian ambush in an undiscovered space. I think that's the other card. This is just the only place this is referenced, and it's referenced in the same place. So, you know, they're already maintaining 2 spaces in the rules where it says the Indian ambush thing. So, which is wrong, right? It's wrong in one of the spaces. So, yeah, I don't know. Trade goods I can't trade, and a couple of Indian ambushes, which, you know, I could use against other people, but I haven't decided to do so yet, which may be stupid. I maybe should have. No, I'm waiting for him to go into 3s. Yeah. So my action has to be to make my way back in a different direction. I could go back here, but that's a painful long way. So I can go 1, 2 to here. Nobody really cares about me. I mean, about this character in the game. I mean, it's true anyway, but, you know. So now I am going into way too much detail, but where the fuck? There it is. I mean, I've got 2 copies, but... So this is a level 1 with no penalty because there's a village next to it. I'm not playing anything special. I get a 5. That finds me a town, which is more or less the best I could do. And that's the first round through. Went, found himself another town. Now we come back to Balboa, who's trying to enter a 3 space. And payback's a bitch, man. Indian ambush, painted warriors. Any combat involving Indian units, all Indian units on this combat are doubled. Doesn't apply to allied units which are part of an expedition. Do I have anything to cope with this? Probably not. I have betrayal. Okay, I will be playing this to counter. So Indians are doubled, but they don't get the first strike. So this is less of a valuable card than the other one. And Balboa is going to be facing a shitty 5. Maybe I won't play that Betrayal. Although it has a 20 and a 40. Yeah, I'm going to play it. I'm going to pull that 40 off map. So I'm looking at 25. I get... I don't know if I get my horsies. I think I don't get them on any ambush. What is the number here? It says 4.14. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for horses. Unless a card is played which prevents it. Thanks. So now I have to look up 4.14 to see if that card prevents it. I don't remember which card did. I think it's the ambush. Indian ambush. The Indian units are automatically doubled in their first round of combat. In the standard game, horses don't get their thing. So this would double all the Indian units, and this doubles them. What was this other one? Shit. Tactical advantage. Tactical advantage gave extra roll. So I've got double. Now, I seem to remember there's a rule that double is actually tripled and not quadrupled. So I'm going to have to go look and find that. Again, yeah. You know, it's like there aren't a lot of rules in this, but some of it has to do with the paucity that's put here. And I don't know where I'm going to find that if that's the case. You know, one of the things is I play so many games that memorizing the rules to any single game is not going to happen. And there's bleed over. So maybe the double rule came from, you know, what I played very recently, this Time of Wars. That may have had it. I may be mistaking it, but I seem to remember it being closer in time. You know, I've played something that didn't have a rule like that, I'm sure of, which was my Asburn Essling that I came back to. So I feel like it was in this set of rules, and it may be in both. You know, that's one of the things. And it's why it's hard to maintain a large number of games and play them, you know, rotating in and out and everything. In some ways, I kind of miss the days when certainly I didn't have so many games, but in a way, there just weren't that many. There weren't that many. And there weren't that many that intrigued me, that were new and different. Get off my lawn! Newfangled bubble maps and cards and all that. Back in my day, we had hexes and we had little counters, and the little counters didn't fit in the hexes because the nubs stuck out, and that's why we had to clip our counters. And, okay. And the word of full disclosure or whatever, I actually didn't start clipping my counters until after like bubble maps and CDGs and stuff were already gaining a lot of traction. I started probably in the late 90s. And I'm not quite sure why. Mainly I had a lot of time on my hands, and I did have a couple of games where it was a problem, where, you know, the nubs were really bugging me. And you know, John Carter, Warlord of Mars was one of the ones. And oh boy, did I clip that extremely, and kind of ruined its value that way. But anyway. So I was right, but it took a while to find, because there's no sort of, hey, general rules here, if two doubled or combined, they're tripled, nothing like that there. There's no reference on the card to where this is actually in play, right? The second place I looked, other than right at the beginning to see if there's any general concepts, was as I was skimming through, Before I got to combat, there's the strategy card section. Doesn't specify there at all. And then the third place, and I mean, you know, yeah, it should only be in one, but I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Repetition is good. It's hard to maintain, though. Finally, under combat resolution, deep in, only one card of each type can be played in the same combat. This reminds me so much like the Time of Wars. I feel like I had the same role in it. It may be that I was, well, it is the case that I was reading this rule book a little before I started playing that. So it may be that I bled it in. However, any number of different cards can be played. Effects are cumulative. Okay, good, I got it. Double cumulative, that's quadrupled, right? No. Nope. If more than one card doubling Indian values are played at the same combat, each card above adds another multiple to Indian values, i.e. 2 doubling cards triples the value. Now, do I have that? I think so. But, oh, I don't get the first round. I checked that already. You know, you give me a stack of tasks that I have to, research quickly like this, and yeah, I do one, I say checked off, but then I forget the result. Brilliant, eh? Oh, shit. Looks like Mr. Battery decided, hey, I don't want to load up. Okay. So I've got the betrayal in place here. This is going to be simultaneous, but the effect is probably no different, to tell you the truth, than that first round attack. If the first round attack is massive, it might actually knock something out. But we're talking about, God, I don't know who we're talking about here. I think it's Balboa. We're talking about Balboa here. He's got a fairly large force. He's not going to get affected. He's not going to get all his units hit in that first round. So let's take a look at this. It's worth 75, which puts me on the massive level. It doesn't get any modifiers on it. A big 12, that's going to be 4 hits applied by Pizarro. And I'll get rid of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, for him, it's 40, 48, 51. So he's actually on that 50 table with, I'll use Leon for combat at +2. I forgot to do a casualty check. I got to go back and do that. +2, and that's it. +3 for the artillery. 11, that's going to be 3 hits. So 1, 2, these are gone. And now this is part of my expedition. These all recover. I've gotten better. And now we have to check the casualty check rolls because we didn't do that for 2 combats in a row. And then we get to do exploration. So casualty check is somewhere in here. I didn't, no sudden shock. I'm not in a city, so I couldn't do that. Okay. We were somewhere, combat. Leader casualty. Following any battle, it's possible a 9 or a 10 on 2 dice. Oh no, it's a 9 or higher, something happens. So let's check for Pizarro first. I think these happen per round. He's fine. Let's check for De Leon. It's important, Balboa, who's the leader, was not leading in combat. Leon was, so he makes the casualty check. He's fine. This is at the end of the battle. Wounded means that leader can't be activated, which I think would be problematic. Like, I couldn't move the expedition because that leader is part of it. Okay, now Balboa gets to make his exploration check, and other people may not want him to succeed. The ambush has already happened. Another one can't happen in that space. But other people might chime in if they have like a lost card or something, because he's getting awfully close to making his location. Got anything? I don't have any cards that are going to help me here. Even though I got these troops allied with me, none of them are, you know, they can't translate for me, and they can't guide me. So basically, I don't know who the hell they are, but they're not, like, I'm not able to select someone who's able to understand Spanish or something. I don't know what the fuck. But they're willing to follow me, because I must be a god. Okay, so I'm going into a level 3. I've got a town next to the level 3. That's a -1. It's not good enough. And I may have a Mano de Dios. I don't know. A -1, that gets me a 0 on level 3. I believe that gets me a discovered marker. That really would suck. And I got nothing I can do about it. So, I mean, it would be no worse than a town, but. So I did not find my way to this space. And now getting to that space is going to take some effort. If I had a rediscovery or whatever, this would be a great time to play. You know, well, next turn would be a great time to play it, and I would just search that space again. So that did not go all that well. The interactive card play, it's not so good on solo play, right? There's an automatic mechanism to handle that. There's a solo game that works that way. But to me, it creates less of a narrative, whether solo or opposed. And in some games, the interactive doesn't hurt it. I don't think it hurts Geronimo at all, for various reasons. Because that feels like it's less of a narrative exploration type game. But I feel like this, in comparison to Source of the Nile, at least for me, I feel like I'm losing some of the narrative, because it's all about, can I hurt someone else? You know, it's all about the balance of power and everything being why you play the cards. On the other hand, that kind of take that attitude of the play can be very, very engaging and enjoyable in and of itself. And, you know, another game I remember that had some of that, although it's a direct competitive card play versus card play, but somehow it came to mind, is Wrestling, where you could introduce shit into the fight that, like, you know, isn't really you doing something in some cases. But yeah, you know, compare that to like in Magic the Gathering, right? You're playing directly against the other person. The things you're doing to them. Here, I'm not doing something to them. I'm not a mage who can call up those natives or whatever. Yet I have this capacity to, you know, fuck with other people's exploration due to what are essentially decisions I'm making. So what am I? I'm not the Conquistador, that's for sure. I'm not the company that runs that Conquistador. I'm like the god smiling on that Conquistador and spiting other people, which, you know, it feels weird to me. It feels weird to me, but it does produce a certain kind of competitive, enjoyable experience in some circumstances. I have no disagreement with that, but without a strong tie to why do I have this hand of cards that lets me fuck with people, right? And, you know, there's a part of me, like, I might as well be playing Uno, you know, with that sort of take that type atmosphere in it. There's no, once you disassociate what the player's choices are from what they can do as a player. So if you disassociate what the player's choices are from any entity that the player could reasonably be considered to be, things start getting weird, right? And now I'm not the conquistador anymore. I'm not the company backing the conquistador. I'm not his, his trade coalition or whatever, or his investment company. I'm some spirit. That's the best I can come up with. And this is a problem I have with CDGs in a lot of cases where you're able to influence stuff that, in all honesty, you shouldn't be able to do. But again, it does make for more interesting competition, I guess. Old games didn't tend to do this. I'm thinking about things like Cosmic Encounter that had huge amounts of nastiness and everything in it, but it could all kind of be linked to the player. The player actually could do this. Same company though, Quirks. You're able to advance the environment. But it's really that you're able to influence the advances on the environment. Just to pick something from the same era where you could fuck with things. But you think like Dune. Dune had card play in it. That card play was largely stuff that you couldn't influence. Now, if you look that you as a player would have influence on, you didn't have like, Stilgar falls and breaks his neck and dies. Too bad, that you wouldn't have an influence on. You would have things like if you had power over the weather to either know it or control it. Well, that was linked to you because you should, as the character you were. War of the Ring, the old SPI version, and newer games too. That game had events that players could play that maybe you could argue they shouldn't have control over. So things like the pipe we cache discovered, well, maybe Sauron has that kind of power to influence stuff at that level. But Gandalf, when he has stuff that kind of just sort of randomly happens, I don't know. But again, I'm pretty sure the conquistadors were not performing successful voodoo during the period against their competitors. Pretty sure. What's introduced is, and the competition does as well. Right now we're rushing to get to the first empire. It's only 5 victory points, but it's 5 victory points. I mean, nobody's got any so far, basically. Nobody's found a city yet. I don't think towns are worth anything. I don't remember. But you have to be occupying them for them to be worth anything, because you can't make them allied. So Almagro here is like, well, I need food. Maybe next turn I need food, but I want to push on. But in contravention to that is, if I push on, I'm also 1 away from a couple places. He's been stymied. He's been stymied. He's further away, further away. So now I'm in the lead if I push forward. Do I want to do that or not? Have enough people played their nastiness? I'm going to take my chances because it's 5 victory points, man. Combined situation. Cordoba's player plays an Indian ambush as I enter there, and Alvarado plays Painted Warriors to double the units, and yeah. Still probably not enough. As we've seen, the Spaniards kind of kick ass. Am I going to play any cards in response? I don't think I have anything. I do not. Poison darts is not going to help here. So, I get 3. I think we're doubled and doubled again. I think that's what we decided. It's not on the ambush card, which sucks. It really should be. So I get a 5, 30. I don't know if I can hold off on making the decision on the that. 45.50, but okay. So that's going to be a 150. It's an ambush, so it doesn't really fucking matter. It's on the 60 or more. There's no modifiers. I do 4 hits to them. My choice. Again, I'll hit the cannon and 3 cav. So that's 40, 46, 49. Just misses the 50 table. And I've got a combat of 2 under Almagro. I'll use him. That gives me a 9. That'll be 2 hits. I can take this one and this one. Another round goes. Now another round has to be played out. He has an encirclement card which could force the retreat to be 4 rounds instead of 2. I don't think he can play it now. I think he had to play it before the battle. It would only make sense, right? But who knows? I didn't play it because the chances of this battle beating him enough, or him wanting to retreat, were fairly low. Okay, so now there's nothing special. The horses aren't doubled. I can kill horses in this round. This is a big deal. So this is 15, goes to 45, because I'm still doubled, which is the 42 table. We could see some losses here. 8. That's a 1. I am going to kill... Oh shit, I forgot the +1 for the artillery. He did 3. He would have gotten a 4th hit, wouldn't he? Because it would have shot down to there. Okay. All right, so instead this is on the 5 table, which is down here, and 8 doesn't do shit. Okay. And that's a big deal because now I still have that 49 table at +3, which is a 7 that gets the kill. Okay. It's close. Leader loss check. My horses got reversed. Because, yeah, I could have knocked out either a horse, which is a value, you know, they're big forces, big strength, or I could have taken the cannon out, which is a +1 on the die roll, if I had not taken that extra loss. Because I wasn't on the 5, I was on the 15. Fuck. Son of a bitch, I don't remember what I rolled. I think it was fairly low. All right. Let's give him a morale hit. I think that would have been the accurate result. Okay. Now a leader loss check, 9 or higher is a problem. It's an 8. I just missed taking a wound, and that's him. We're probably running low on battery. That says it's done. I don't believe it. And on to discovery. Oh, fuck. Okay, well, we need to jiggle this, make it start charging again. Okay. What is discovery here? We were going into a 3 space. We've got a town that gives us a -1. Who is this? It's Almagro. It's him. This would be something that wouldn't happen. I got nothing. Is this the discovery table? No. Is it on this side? Yep. So it's a level 3 at -1. I get a 5. I find a city. Hallelujah. That means that I'm poised to go into here. A city means no penalty. Chances are very high that I find something there, but it may not be an empire. But I have 2 of them to shoot at, So that's kind of sweet. And then a lot of others up here. This is a rich area, kind of like over there, kind of like deep in here. But deep in here is not easy to get to. Is the problem that Cordoba's finding there. So that means the green actually went. I pushed him forward. I'm going to swap batteries because this thing is dying and finish off this impulse. Tomorrow's side, I've been stymied. I only found a town here. I got a long walk to get around. Not gonna race things in that condition. So I'm gonna use the diplomacy table here. That's 2 dice. I have a diplomacy of 2 if I use Pizarro. I don't think anybody really cares too much about me. 2 dice plus 2 means I need to roll a 6 to get a food point. So I am going to play a missionary to get me a +1, an additional +1. So now I'm at +3. I get a 10, which means I get a food point. And I can either take a gold card or an asset, a gold roll or an asset card. I take my food, and I'm going to take an asset card because that will help me. Like, a gold roll is fine at certain points in the game, but right now I need help. I need to improve my situation with other things. So I draw an asset card. I get an interpreter. This improves gold, including diplomacy gold. And if I roll a 2 through 4 or a desertion or smallpox, I can lose it. So that's going to help me a lot in the future. And there's other things like guides who just give me a bonus on all discovery rolls. Just very much more helpful. Now, what's neat about those guides is that they're not really helping you find stuff alone. They're also helping stuff to exist, which is a weird system to the game, right? Because of the way that the discovery table works, with the exception of the rediscovery cards when you find absolutely nothing. But if you find a town and you needed a city there, that's not good. But if you have a guide with you, that town might be a city instead. Again, there's more of a game feel to this than any kind of simulation linking you, at any level, right? I mean, it's breaking so many of the conceptions of what might be realistic, that you're not playing any kind of simulation here. You're playing a fun little game. It's like playing Bermuda Triangle and being able to move the storm around, right? Just so much of the game is that way. Doesn't mean it's not fun. Doesn't mean you can't have a good time with it. Probably means I wouldn't want to play it solo. It becomes more of this is a diversion rather than anything, not that I want to learn things solo. It's just that, like, I get more into the mindset of who I'm trying to be, and that can be, in a game of Monopoly, man. I can get into the mindset. You could say Monopoly is less of a simulation. I don't know, man. I can argue that I have this opportunity to buy something that just shows up, that I get because, I'm a property developer and whatever, and I have my connections and everything that I get from rolling on the board. It's very hard. Even though that's a very, very abstract game and doesn't represent anything, and I'm not learning anything about, markets and real estate in it particularly, at least not much in terms of the board and the die rolls, it's not violating the core principles of the actions that I believe I'm performing. I can make up some kind of argument for why something happens the way it does. I have a really hard time making up why voodoo that DeSoto is performing affects anything. I have a really, really hard time arguing why my guide is more likely to create a city. Not just that I found it, that I created it. Again, I understand from a game design point of view, you got something smooth here that works. The opposite, the alternative would not be the same kind of game at all. But for me, this becomes, like I said, like playing Uno. I'm playing an abstract that has, some kind of representation to link to reality. But it's not focusing. I'm not doing things that I should be able to do. Things that exist, like the guide, don't have quite the effect that you think they should. They don't help me find stuff alone. They help stuff to exist that I find. Really weird, if you consider the games that were made in a previous era, the games from, say, the 70s and 80s, they didn't tend to try to cut that corner and say, I can make a better, more enjoyable gaming experience with more tension and excitement in it. And you can argue this one way or another. Either side is valid and is potentially good, but they just didn't do that. They looked at things from a point of view of how can I simulate what the person who's taking the actions, what the, in the representatives, the representation that the player's taking, what is that in terms of making decisions? And those decisions are made properly. And then, the impacts that come from it, things that were random were kind of usually random. Things that weren't random were kind of not random. And you start seeing some tweaking of that in the 80s. And some of the impulse-based games in the Victory Games lineup are showing that kind of thing, right? Where you get to choose to move a force, and time has been mutated here. You're not moving everything at once like it would be. Now, of course, there's always been a flaw in the I go, you go concept, because both sides are moving at once. And so you could kind of argue, well, I'm replacing one bad system that doesn't, or one system that doesn't accurately represent reality with another one that maybe has, some perceived flaws, but actually fixes others. Here I'm not seeing that fixing unrealities. What I'm seeing is trying to make a more exciting game out of what we're playing. And again, you make your choices, right? Euros don't give a shit about any kind of reality that they're representing. They're all about the game, right? They're all about delivering that gaming experience. And Euros have heavily influenced that broad sort of adventure gaming, which I would put this in, category, But that adventure gaming category used to be all about, trying to keep things somewhat reasonable, trying to keep things somewhat logical. And, you compare, what is it, Hero Quest or whatever it was, the Games Workshop dungeon crawl thing with Gloomhaven. And you're seeing those impacts there. Gloomhaven has these weird sort of artificial constraints that make for fine gaming opportunities and puzzles and whatnot, but no longer seem to apply to reality in the same way that a much less, perhaps to some people, entertaining type of challenge, type of competitive challenge that Hero Quest may have provided, where a lot more is reliant on luck than it is on, trying to manipulate your hand of cards or whatever. I know which side I fall on. Because, I grew up in one era, and I like the narrative that it provides. And if things feel like they're illogical, like I'm doing stuff that I shouldn't be, or that stuff is having impacts that it shouldn't, that digs under my psyche and starts to wreck, my enjoyment. It destroys my suspension of disbelief in the game. And that may not be an issue. I have no worry about that when I play, well, I say Uno, but I don't fucking play Uno. But I play Express, the little train card game. I play other pure card games, things like Bridge and whatever. They're not really representing anything in my mind. So that's the jump I'd have to make to this. This becomes a purely competitive thing. It doesn't represent anything. And then there's like, well, you're throwing a lot of chrome on here for something that's, that's not trying to represent, if you make that argument. So if I'm going to be all in on the gameplay side of it, well, let me play a game of fucking Bridge, man. or oh hell or something. I'm fine with that. That's got the same competitive aspect. And yeah. Also, Cordoba is going to do a diplomacy. He's playing a trade goods card. Nobody is really... See, this is the thing, nobody's worried about him in terms of winning, but then the question becomes sort of yeah, but will I get another opportunity to fuck with him? Or is Almagro, wherever he is, over here, he's got problems to solve before he gets into there. So we're going to hold on him. So yeah, let us check our trade goods here, our diplomacy. We'll be using Pedro de Cieza de Leon. And he's got a +1, and nobody's going to fuck with it. It could be, though, as you get later in the turn order, that I want to get this card out of my hand, so I draw another one because, it doesn't really help me if I'm holding cards between. How about I roll 2 dice? And 11. Allied city. No. I get a food point. Yeah, really good that one that I chose to re-roll both dice, right? Choose one, gold roll or asset. Hostile town becomes neutral. It's not a hostile town. Again, I'm going to take the asset card. At this point, getting gold is just not as valuable. I get a mano de Dios. Now, I've got this one face up. It shouldn't be. It should be face down with the expedition. I don't want to confuse things terribly. I guess I could. I just don't see it as that important that it's revealed. The mano de Dios, though, is not even associated with the expedition that found it. That is, this player has some support of God. Now, how do I feel about that? Because again, that's kind of a, hey, you can re-roll whatever. I have no problem with that. Faith was a major element towards, the tenacity of the Conquistadors. So even if you don't buy into the idea that like their faith directly influenced God and brought him, to help them, which I think most of us probably accept that, that that's not the way it works. But at that time it wasn't. You can at least say, you know what, that spirit, etc., is there, and it would push and it would represent that tenacity or something. Or you could say, the prayers did work. That's fine too, honestly. But the prayers that Pizarro doesn't find something before you do, and knowing where he is and how close he is and everything, man, that just doesn't work. I mean, you see what I mean? I mean, it's like this. First of all, you can come up with a rational, non-magical answer to it. And even if you wanted to apply the magical, I wouldn't mind that much, because it's something that I would be deciding, that yes, I don't want these Indians to defeat me, that I know about and that I have some potential for influencing. Otherwise, I don't know what I am and who I am that's making these decisions. Anyway, we're out of battery on a couple of different levels, so it's time for me to go down and kill a fire giant some more. Starting the new impulse, Alvarado. And again, notice I'm not using this Explorer at all, or Conquistador at all. He's really just there as a reserve to do something later. If I have the card that allows me to do 2 actions, I may send him out because it doesn't really... There's some risk to being at sea, though. There's like storms at sea and stuff like that. So anything is of some danger. Okay, so he's... he attempted diplomacy and failed. We get over here to Balboa as the next one, and he backtracks down to this town, stops there in order to perform diplomacy. He needs food. He also needs to rally, but whatever. And Pizarro decides to screw him over with an Indian uprising. Normally I would want to hold this for a city, but, I don't know if he's going to make it to a city. And I'd like to get the card out of the way. So another hostile town here. That doesn't affect the chances of exploration, because for reasonable reasons, the actual geography and the settlement of towns and whatnot, those are fixed values. You can make your arguments about, hey, do those values make sense or whatever, but they're outside player control. Unlike, hey, I happen to have a guide with me, therefore there's more likelihood there's cities around. And it really is the case, right? I mean, it's not just you missed it. Because there might be a town there or a village that's not good enough. Okay. But anyway, I hit there, and now I have to worry about, I think 1.24, but maybe 12.341. Those are the 2 references I have there about the troops that are going to show up, and we'll handle that battle. Pizarro has additional cards to screw troops-wise to get rid of these, which is a big deal. I mean, that's 40 extra strength points, right? The rule for a town is it's only 1 unit, which is pretty crappy. But it turns the space hostile, which means there's a penalty on any diplomacy. And I don't know if he's able to backtrack and say, you know what, screw it, I don't want the diplomacy anymore. I would say yes, and then try to go on to that 3 space there. So there's a 15 force there. And we're going to play a desertion, which gets rid of this. For his side, we have Juan Velasquez, who will be a 2-point leader. So he'll be facing these. Indian Uprising. Is this doubled? Fuck. I don't think so. I think it's only the ambush that does that. I do not see anything here, but I know that the rule was kind of buried somewhere. It was in the combat section, maybe, which is not an unreasonable place. It's just there are a number of reasonable places for it to show up. Now, the combat section was the multiple cards. Yeah, I'm assuming it's normal strength. Because it's not an ambush, right? So we look for our combat tables, and yeah, I'm eating up a lot of space to hold all these charts and everything. My table's so damn narrow here. Okay, so let's look at the 15 first, because that's kind of the harsh thing. And I get a 6. That's going to be a morale hit. I can't rally because I moved. I actually don't think that I can diplomacy either because I moved. Okay. And on their side, it's a huge value. Ooh, I probably got first strike. I probably didn't take that morale hit. Let's go back to the rules. Standard game, the horse rules. Unless a card played which prevents it. Yeah, thanks. Again, I think the uprising allows that, so I actually get to shoot that first. So 3240 at +2. 810. Okay, I wiped that unit out anyway. But I make a leader loss check for good old Juan. Juan. He's dead. Since I already have a Conquistador there, another one isn't needed. I don't get a free draw for him. You only get a free draw if he's your last Conquistador. His troops stay, though. I think. There might be something that one unit dissolves or something because of that. I will look that up. But I think I have to keep moving because I took a movement action, not a diplomacy action. I have to be in a town for the good thing to happen. Loss of a leader is a morale hit, which makes sense. I don't have a mano de Dios, so I can't avoid that. And I don't think I can plunder or anything else in this case. So I will continue on for now the exploration. Now, do I have a way to screw with that? I do not. I have almost no cards left. Oops, there it is. Okay. So this is a discovery on a level 3. I've got a town next to me. That gives me a -1. And let me make sure I don't have anything. Four is a 3. That will open up a city. This would have been a better place to hit him. I would have done so, except, you know, I thought he was going to be able to diplomacy there, but that was my own mistake. Whatever. So now I'm there, and that will mean that I'm real close to possibly discovering an empire. I've got 2 spaces that might discover it, and they'll just fill this in addition to giving me the 5 victory points. On the other hand, my force is without food. It's got 2 morale hits on it. I lost a Conquistador, so it's not a great situation, but it is the closest to getting to an empire. I cheated. This is an action card. It's not a combat card. I'm going to leave the results as they were, but it's not a reaction card. I noticed because I just found one here, but I don't feel like trying to rewind things. It's too dramatic an effect. Sometimes when you screw things up, just let them lie. You know? Okay. I was looking over him to see, you know, hey, what does he want to do on his turn? Wrong. He's in at least as good a position. So I'm going to duck down into here. Now that opens up problems, and everybody's going to look in their cards. Do I have something bad I can play? Because he's close to getting his success there. In this case, it would be an ambush card, like this one. He's got a handful of nastiness. Now, did he have one too? He did not. Okay. Ambush card. This is in a level 3 or 4 area, in this case a level 4 area. We have to find the rule here, because it doesn't tell you. 4.14, I think it's 3, but I've not done a level 4 yet, so I can't be sure. 3 units. And anyone can play shit on here. Whose turn are we on? We're on Almagaro's. Not too great. 2232. That'll be doubled. Do we have anything? We don't have anything that's going to work there. We have this, which I could throw in if need be. But we'll take the fight. Okay. So we have a morale hit against us, but it takes 2 to have a penalty. We have a combat value of 2 under Almagaro. Okay. So this is 10, 20, 32, which makes 64, puts me on the max sheet. With an 11, that's 4 hits. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, these are just temporary unless something terrible happens. Over here, we have 40, 46, 49. What did I say I was at? +2, +3 for the artillery. With a 6, I get 1 hit. I choose this one, killing it. I've got to stay at least 2 rounds, then I can retreat. I don't get a bonus on the first round or anything, so let's go on. It's 20. With a 6 is a morale hit. That doesn't take effect immediately because now combat's simultaneous. We're still on that 49 table at +3 because we still have the artillery. Even if there had been hits, I would still have it. Again, simultaneous. I get a lot. I get an 11, which is going to be 3 hits. That'll finish these guys off. Leader loss check for the 1 commander fighting. Does not happen. Nowhere I wanted to take a reroll. Nowhere I wanted to take a bonus roll. Okay. And now I get to explore. Now, before I explore, I look for cards that might help me and ones that might hurt. Level 4 next to a city. That's no penalty. A 4, 5, or 6 is what I need. I'm going to play the Mano de Dios. I don't have a place to put this. There's no discard space for the assets. I'll put it over here for now. Because it's not really out of the game, but there's no provision for reshuffling those or whatever, but I would assume that they would if they run out. It's just unlikely, unlike the strategy cards. So I'm going to take a +2 on the die roll. Nobody's got anything that hurts me. I get a 5. I find an empire. So I grab an empire. Okay. Now we go to the empire disposition roll. The number of sets is a design limit. Okay, so a city is in the place where I just found. Nearest unoccupied level 4, no more than 5 spaces away. This is 2 spaces away, 2 spaces away, 2 spaces away. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. 2. So one of the imperial cities is going to be here. And notice it just says city. It would be nice if it said imperial city on it. It is a little different looking from this. It's the 2 imperial cities that look very, very similar. And now odd, even. Odd, we put one up here. And now 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the capital is going to be down here. I've found this one. The king will be up here. Looks completely different with that weird dark thing around him. I don't know. All right. I've entered an imperial city. It's not hostile to me. It doesn't have any troops in it that I'm aware of. I have to check that to make sure. This is gone. And there's nothing I can do now that I just found it. So like Source of the Nile has a nice kind of, you know, you find something exciting, neat stuff happens right away, you engage with them and whatever. But here you have this singular action, which means, you know, I find things out, but now I can't take advantage of them right away. I won't be able to negotiate. That'll take me a full another turn. I don't know, you know, which I prefer. In terms of keeping the pacing going, I think this is better. But in terms of like, I don't know, it's kind of cool when you find something to resolve it all at once. Let me just check the Empire's rules, make sure there's nothing special there, but I think I've got it. Special thing that happens, 5 victory points for discovering the city. I have more victory points towards winning the game because I occupy an imperial city right now. I don't, you know, it's not many. If I'm close to the 200, I'll look things like that up. Okay. That puts me on Pizarro's turn. And now he's not really in that sort of, wow, I absolutely need to get to the city. So I look here, see if I have a legend, because I'm right next to an area where I can start hunting for one. I have a morale hit and I have food. Do I want to get rid of the morale hit? The other option is, which direction do I want to go in? I think I'm going to get rid of the morale hit. So if I move into here, I screw this up, and then I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is my closest next city. And I'll find an empire that drains down to there. It would have been nice to get an empire here and an empire here. But one of the things with this game, first of all, that would be unlikely. Because I find this one and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wouldn't be close enough to include that. So I'd end up shooting down to here. Well, I'd get all 3 of these, and then I'd get all 3 of these. Yeah. So that's sort of the maximizing your empires. But the truth of the matter is, there weren't that many big empires, and the chance of, so the fact that you don't find that you have difficulty discovering things is actually a way of putting a nice limitation on the number of empires that there are in the game. Of course, there's the numerical limitation as well, but, you know, what is that, 5? You know, what can you argue? 3, maybe 4, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's possible you can find more than sort of historically existed, but it's also not all that likely because it's hard to find these. You really kind of have to force your way into them, which is a case in point to be made that not all the conquistadors are going to probably find empires and be able to exploit them, and they can exploit, you know, cities and whatnot instead, and look for legends. And then you have to evaluate where your points are going to be. Okay, or go down and start playing in an area somebody else has found. So for Pizarro, I am going to do a rally, I think, as my action, which I was hoping would be on this sheet. But it's on this one. It's 2 dice. Pizarro has a rally of 2. I've got the exhortation or whatever. I don't think I need that. I didn't have gold I could divide. I'm not spending a food point. somebody could play Disgruntled Soldiers. I don't know how much they want to screw with him. I had one of those. I thought you just, play it. Here's one. Play versus any expedition that has at least a morale check. So, this is a little weird. I guess there's two different uses for this. You can either use it as an action card, or you can use it as a reaction to rally, which it doesn't even say. Maybe that's a typo. I don't know which way to go. I like the card better. So I'm not going to waste the card on the rally attempt. So 2 dice at +2. 11, that removes all morale hits. Well, that was a much better roll than I needed, but that's okay. And that kills off Pizarro, and now we're at the Cordoba expedition. When cards and the rules, well, and in this case, this chart, not sure about whether the rules say anything, disagree with each other. But I'm going to play this as per the card instead of as per the player aid chart. Don't know which one is more appropriate. Don't know if both are expected to be in play, but the card doesn't even say a reaction card. So I'm going to hit Almagro, since he's doing well right now, with the Disgruntled Soldiers. Roll a d6, add the number of morale hits to determine the number of units to remove from play. +2, I get an 8. That's going to be 2 units. And I am guessing, yes, I get to choose. I'm going to take a horsey and a cannon. The horsey is the cannon. So that was a pretty nasty hit. What happens if you... Yeah. So, I don't know if that's terrible. Those desertions do not affect the governor's favor, though. And, I played my Mano de Dios. It's kind of funny, you probably want to play a hidden Mano de Dios rather than your face-up one, simply because the face-up cards don't count against your hand limit, they're assets. Oh, I decided to put the the discarded asset underneath. That seems like a reasonable thing. At this point, I am going to do diplomacy, because I need to get food, and I have a missionary if I so desire, which could give me a +1. I only have a +1 for diplomacy, so that might not be a bad choice. This is going to be a problem once. Again, this table is just too damn thin. +1 to diplomacy. I really need the food. I see no reason not to play the missionary now. +2. We're getting to a late point in the game, but he's not in bad shape, so I'm going to leave him alone and try to fuck with, people who are doing okay. 4, 5, 6, I get nada. All right. That sets us to the next impulse, but the turn might end on a 2 or 3. It does not. And we come to another case of that sort of, player actions causing problems for other players. They're actually sort of the only thing. I mean, you could fail on the discovery table or whatever. But in terms of Indian uprisings and all that, the only thing that's causing you problems is other players playing their cards. The solo game doesn't work that way, obviously. It has a stacked deck. You get randomly affected by that. But what that means is, somebody who's not doing terribly well, like Cordoba down here, well, he's probably not going to face any more harm. And you can look at that in a couple of ways. One is, his bad luck somehow helped him and it turned better, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. On the other hand, you can look at it as sort of a catch-up mechanism. The second one, good game style, good game design, right? You know, Euro type ideas there. Let's make sure everybody's still in it. Let's, you know, allow people to catch up when they're doing badly. On the other hand, you know, the realities of like luck mean that it should be independent events. I mean, they shouldn't be influenced. Your previous bad luck at finding natives shouldn't really mean that there aren't any, and you could make some hand-wavy arguments along that side. But again, you know, it's this sort of, what are you looking at here? You know, are you looking at something that's trying to be a more competitive game, or are you looking at something where the design is trying to be even-handed and not try to tip the balance in favor of somebody who's fallen behind? And, you know, I don't know. I can see arguments both ways. I'm like with everything, but in this case, I'm kind of more ambivalent about it, except for the fact that, like, you can cut a deal with other players so that you are immune to natives now. And it's the fact that you dealt with other conquistadors that you're not in contact with, right, that is preventing you from pissing off those natives in any sense of the word. That's troubling. It's very troubling. Or at least greatly reducing your chances, because, of course, anybody who's not in that particular deal might be targeting the people who are in the deal. But if the deal is like, you know, one person's way in the lead, let's concentrate all our cards against that person, it means that 4 of the people are sharing one person's nastiness, and that's it. All right, let's start another round, I guess. Players had ineffective diplomacy rolls where, without food, time is running out. You know, better grab food so we don't take more morale hits, right? Well, and we have morale hits. We have to rally. All kind of stuff you got to do. That kind of freezes you and prevents you from running around exploring and finding everything, right? And that's one of the nice things about the pulsing. You know, when I say, well, you should be able to get to the town, or in Source of the Nile, you get to a village, you get to trade with them, you get to interact in all kind of ways. Well, by doing it in a pulsed situation and having this time limit on the turns and whatnot, it slows down the amount of territory that you end up expanding over. Of course, it draws out the length of the game because the victory points are a certain level. Whatever. I don't know what kind of mass effect it has on everything, because you have to do all these things, and everybody has to. So it's just like less gets done each turn, more turns have to happen. But it slows, you know, it keeps the pace kind of balanced. I don't know. It makes each player action smaller, is I guess. And that again is sort of a Euro design philosophy. So yeah, this guy had only a +1. This guy had a +2. Plus he threw a myth in to get himself to +3. Still didn't roll well enough to get his dip. As your cards go away, you want to play them all before the impulse. Well, because you might want to discard your cards to get a new hand. Played an Indian Uprising against Balboa here. You play it during your own turn, not as I did before, as a reaction. And then Almagro is going to want, he's got a reaction here that he wants to use. He is going to want to rally. Now, I don't think there are any reaction cards against rally, just the disgruntled troops, which isn't really, like, I decided it isn't when faced with a comparison. So I have DeSoto doing this. I get a 5. That lets me drop it by 1, not what I wanted. I wanted to get both of those, clear out my problem. That's essentially my turn. I have, you know, cards I could play, but nothing I really want to. Pizarro got his food, he got his rallying in place. He's going to go into here. That's a 4 space, but he's only got a town, which means he's at -3 on the die roll. There's a fair chance he only gets another town even. Indeed, that is the case. Nobody's playing anything against him. He seems to be not doing all that greatly, all that well, particularly. I want to focus any effects on Almagro right now. Try to prevent him from getting that king. This guy especially wants to, because he's the closest to being able to slip in there if bad things happen to Almagro. Close things off with Pedro here trying to do diplomacy. He needs to get some food. Almagro has a couple of choices. He could have tried to kill him, but he doesn't really want to kill that replacement leader. That doesn't do much for me. So I'm going to play a bad translation card instead. I mean, I could probably play both. So he's going to be a -1 on the diplomacy check. Just make things a little harder. It's a 9. Okay, I get what I wanted, which was a food point. Gold or asset, and if it was already hostile, it becomes neutral. Well, it's not. I'm going to draw an asset. Again, I think at this point in the game they're better. I get bearers. This allows me to have up to 2 extra units, total 12, and carry 1 additional food point, total 4. Wow, I didn't know there was a limit to the size of an expedition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I was probably over, and some of my others are too. I'm going to go look for that rule, because I'm not aware of it. Briefly, I can't find it. There's no rule section on expeditions, which is where I would look if I could think of it. There is on outfitting, and both in the standard and the basic game. There's nothing in the purchasing units that limits how many units you have. According to the recruiting rules, 15. Let's look at those. Maybe the... I am not seeing anything there. The number of counters is a design limit. So then I'm thinking, well, maybe there's somewhere else. The only place bearers, I think, are mentioned in the rules. Well, Conquistador card might be a place that says it. I kind of looked at this, and I didn't see anything there. You know, if you can take Indian allies on, well, that becomes sort of a, well, am I allowed to? What's going on there? I do not find anything. Like food is where bearers are mentioned, right? An expedition carry food points and can no more than 3 and cannot carry more food points than it has foot units. In all cases, an expedition that has a bearer can carry more as stated on the card. But what is also stated on the card is that I can have a larger force. And I don't remember anywhere that, and I have not been able to find anywhere that limits the size of your force. Now, clearly I should not have to know what this card says to know that rule. But like I said, I haven't looked in the errata, maybe. Now, it's not going to be here. It's not going to be here. It may be in the published errata. Since I'm at the end of this impulse, I will roll the dice again. See if the turn ends. It does not. And I will go downstairs and I guess finally open up that PDF and see if it says anything that helps me with regard to that. But, wow, I must have rolled really well. I did. I rolled like an 11, I guess. I don't know. No, because I had 1 here, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I'll come up if that's in there. And unfortunately, maybe have to make some other corrections. It's one reason I hate opening up the errata, because I really like my printed rule book to be good, and if there's a lot of errata in it that I have to pencil shit in, that's going to be hard, especially with the glossy rule book. There's a little bit in there that didn't make it onto here. It's 2 sheets instead of 1, but not much of importance. There was, a mention of Diplomacy 1 and Diplomacy 2 markers that no longer exist in the game. Mentions about no game turn track. That's fine. I like to keep track of the game turn. I don't know. It really doesn't matter. Like they said, it's not really needed. Yeah, I agree. I'm using one anyway, but because it is kind of useful. Turns 1, 2, and 3 are special. Once you get out of turn 3, it's not special anymore. Every turn, you really don't need to track anymore. But those first 3, there is some importance to. Notably, that card that was listed as an action card, but the rules have a reference about it. No, the charts have a reference about it, about being a reaction, being used as a reaction. That is not mentioned, and I don't remember what what I went down for, because there was something that I just immediately wanted to look at. But there is one key rule, one key change that's not in the rules, which is that troops stay on the board no matter what in the rules as written. The designer has switched on that, or clarified, or whatever, to the more reasonable. They only stay on the board in a settlement. So an ambush wouldn't just stay out there, which is fine. It really didn't make sense, but usually things get destroyed. The one thing that there was an option that was added. I'm not gonna play with it, but it does make sense to me, and it would be the kind of thing that I could see, just coming up with and saying, hey, what about this? So when the Spanish units take combat losses, they don't have any effect, and I don't remember the rules precisely, whether it's you take 1 morale hit now if any of your units were flipped over at the end of the combat, or you take 1 per combat unit was flipped over. I think it's the former, just to make sure that you don't suffer less of a result. Like, you don't suffer any kind of bad result. I'm perfectly fine with, the combat chart having a mixture of the casualties are real, but they don't actually hurt your morale, and you come out just as strong, but you're more at risk of losing the combat. I kind of like that sort of, trade-offs in the chart, even though you have no control over it or anything. I don't see any difficulty with that. I think I'm going to need to pause for a bit, because now again, I can't remember what the hell it was. What did I go down for? I went down to look up something in particular. I may have caught it in my verbal spew there, but I still don't recall what it is. I don't think I did catch it. That there's any limit on the troop size. So, I didn't see anything in the rules. That doesn't mean it's not there, but I made a pretty good effort of looking for it and did not find it. And again, it feels like, like with the other card, it feels like the cards and the rules aren't necessarily in alignment. I don't know which to go, which to prefer in any case. But given that I didn't see such a rule, there was no way for me to know that there's a limit on troop size. So I'm just going to ignore that implication on the card. It seems to me that a few errors of that nature have caught in. And, it's not the only things I found in the game that I mentioned just now. So, yeah, it looks like there's room for a fair amount more errata. I'm not going to type it all out and ask it as a question. Because, like I said, what I just thought of, I can't remember anymore. But if anybody wants to watch the video for that, feel free to extract the, something's wrong here. I get the feeling that this probably didn't get a lot of playing, although it got a number of reviews, so I don't know. Popping up to do a little bit more. When I consider this against Age of Exploration, the Tim Jim game, yes, it's more depth. But in terms of like the Conquistador portion of that, would be relatively quickly handled. As a whole game, this may actually be about the same size. Hard to tell, but the Conquistador portion probably, would take the amount of effort that I've done so far. Much less, obviously it's not telling as big a story. I guess it's not giving you the opportunity to play against each other more. Anyway, first player who went, white player, got a successful diplomacy, nobody playing against him, picked up an Indian guide, and if he had been in a city, it could have gone allied, but he wasn't. Got his food. Over here, Balboa, no food, 2 morale hits, but was sitting on a hostile city. I moved, found another city, not an imperial. Don't have anything that can do anything about that. Nobody played against me. Somebody might have, but nobody had a card to screw with me. It probably would have been played if I did. But I'm also playing my legend here. It goes back in the deck. It can't do anything. It's a useless card while the Amazon is in play. But if that gets removed or something... Oh, you know what I forgot? I did this in the first game too. I forgot to roll for a random event. Damn me. Do I have that? Yeah, I have it on here. I just forget it. Okay, well, that's life. I'll remember next turn, I hope. If I caught it much earlier, it would have been worth it, but no. So that's on the board and now capable of being found by me. And, somehow I don't mind playing a card like this on yourself in the sense of you had hints of it. That's why it's in your hand. And then you develop those hints and now everybody else knows about it, sort of. I don't know. But yeah, I'm at a bit of a risk because, there's significantly more than a 50-50 chance that the game ends on this, that the turn ends on this impulse, and I got problems. But I didn't want to I didn't want to try diplomacy in a hostile city. That's icky. Players, De Soto, with the help of a priest, ended up rallying that expedition. And then over here, Pizarro, well, did a couple of things. First of all, he played an arrest warrant, which can be used to drop the governor's index of the guy who we all kind of think is in the lead and needs to be screwed over a little bit. Doesn't do much. But, it takes the 5 victory point bonus that he had from, it takes 5 victory points away from him. He was at 10 out of 200. Now, he has more for occupying this city. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a victory point table anywhere. So the only way you know the victory points, this would be a useful thing to put down on a piece. I'm having trouble with the amount of player aids there are as it is, mainly because of space rather than anything else. But let's see. I don't know. Victory point awards. cities allied and controlled is 3.22. Points. I really want a chart here. 4 for each non-imperial allied city, 6 for each imperial city controlled or allied. So that's 6 for sitting there. And 8 for an imperial city. Oh no, I'm sorry. For an imperial capital controlled or allied. Yeah, so I have 6 more points for sitting here. So he's at 11 right now. Just to give you an idea of how well the top player's doing. It's 200. You need gold to win this game. You know, even if you look at like the expeditions, like out to here or whatever, if I succeed in that, what's the most I can get? 60. That's a lot. But it's also a risky operation. So yeah, Pizarro moved down and found himself another town. That's not really too big a deal in either direction. He needs to develop this forest space to get a chance of finding an imperial city there. On to the last player. Cordoba discovered a city here. That's kind of a big deal, but not that big. A town is just fine for going into a 2 area, and it doesn't really help you. The big deal is what happens in these 2-3 areas in terms of me finding this, and then, you know, conceptually getting into those if I don't get a result that allows me to find a capital there or an imperial civilization. And that puts me to the end of the turn. Well, end of turn check. We do not get it, so we'll go another round. Well, I did Alvarado's expedition. He's got a morale hit, but he's got food. He chose to press on to try to get to this a little quicker. The reasoning being kind of, you know, 1 morale hit, I'm not doing well particularly. There's someone doing much better than me. There's probably going to be someone else doing better than me. I'm safe. Nobody's going to play bad things on me, you know. Now, they may still, if I'm the only target available at the beginning of the turn or whatever, it's possible. We'll see. However, Balboa looks like he's in a lot of trouble here. No food, 2 morale hits. He's got to think real hard about what he's going to do. But yeah, I figure I'm covered because of that. Which, again, you know, is that reasonable consideration? I don't know. You know, I'm making a decision that I can push my men because Balboa is in a better position towards winning, and somebody I have no contact with, right? And is in a worse position in terms of food and morale, which means he probably has to do diplomacy, which means he won't get rid of his morale, chances are. It's hard to tell. But, you know, if it does go more turns, I have time to rectify this situation. I don't, you know, I'm not stuck with this decision of pushing forward no matter what. I'm fully aware of what his situation is and the fact that other players will be targeting him. However you want to look at that. And it's just the nature of an interactive multiplayer card game, is that kind of shit happens, right? If you've got take that type cards, they will not be attracted. And there's no other way, really, to hurt this guy. Nothing. The only thing that can screw him up is if he fucks up on the diplomacy table or something like that, right? There really is nothing terrible that, unlike in Source of the Nile, where bad stuff just sort of happens to you, right? And you're watching it happen, and none of the other players can really do anything about it, right? I mean, they can do things that they could physically do. If they link up with you, they can, like, you know, maybe trade goods with you or something like that. But in this, for the most part, the way good and bad things happen is all through the cards, and since the bad things happen through the cards that other people are playing in the multiplayer game, there's something really twisted about it. That's not going to be an impact on the solitaire game, but if you're going to play a pure solitaire game that's randomly determined like that, is this giving you the depth of the narrative that, you know, Source does? And I would say, nah, not really. I would want something different there instead. So, I don't know. Anyway, he discovered his town. I moved him forward, and we keep going. His diplomacy did not work. He ended up, well, he had a hostile chief played against us. Just because everybody's like, let's burn our cards. It doesn't really matter. And he's not a bad choice. He's in a city next to two locations that could become imperial. So let's cause him problems. And he's got a legend near him that he could score. So troops showed up, but not much effect. It was like 13 strength points or something. And I get first attack on them, so no problem with that. I did not make a leader loss check, though. That would be bad. And we don't get one. Interesting point at this point. Almagro is in an imperial city. You can tell because I had to mark it. Yes, the color's a little different, but the lighting has dimmed a bit. And, yep. He's doing diplomacy. Nobody's got a card to play against him, and he's got the Kalika's wife, +1 to a die roll to your own diplomacy, including any gold roll, which is kind of cool. My diplomacy is 2 with Almagro, so I'm at +3. It's an imperial city, though, so that drops it down to +2. And we get a 5. I have turned that city hostile. This is nasty. I'm going to be facing 3 troops because of that. And we'll see what anybody does. Encirclement card was played on me. It didn't have much effect. The battle was over quickly, as they tend to be. However, the natives survived the charge long enough to give me a morale hit and a wound. Okay, so now we look up the wounding rules. It's not a death. 9 or 10. Conquistador is wounded. Flip him over. He can't be activated for the rest of the game turn. So Almagro is wounded. Now, I think that means I can't move a force containing him, but I could use DeSoto to take actions, either to split off some of the force or to try to quell the hostiles there. Moved on, and I don't know if this was a good idea, into a green space, 1-point space with a -1 modifier. It's the shortest distance, but it's not great. However, a village doesn't, yeah, it does. It does cause harm on a level 2. And it certainly causes harm on a level 3. Either one is at -3. Now, a -3 at level 3 is still more likely to make a town, so I'll probably drop down here. It's just as long a route, but you know, it's just wow. How does the geometry of the map, or geography, you can look at it either way. And I did puzzle over which one I wanted to say beforehand. I'm not just correcting without correcting. How does that influence, you know, what you want to do and everything? It's kind of a weird sort of thinking to bring to mind there. But after Pizarro, we get over here, and he had 1 card left, an Indian Uprising. Now, I have a couple of places I could play it. I could play it in the town. Who cares? Towns, can they go hostile? Yeah. Okay. So I could cause problems to Alvarado, but I don't want to do that. I might want to hit this. He's weakened. It's the most dice. Or I might want to hit Balboa, who's got a couple morale hits and is already at a penalty because of that. I'm going to go after our leader here because we don't even know if Balboa is going to be able to find an imperial city there. And he's got a boatload of problems, so it seems like the best choice. I think I said blue played an Indian Uprising, the remaining card, against Almagro. And it was a nasty draw. It was an 80-point force. The initial charge happened. Managed to kill 2 cav. Now, killing any units is the determinant. It doesn't get worse the more you kill, and it doesn't cause morale hits. So he's down to a governor index of -1, and arrest warrant could now be played against him, and he would be able to be attacked by anyone. However, he did succeed in killing all the natives, and on top of that, De Soto, who had to lead the combat because Almagro is wounded with his lower combat ability, but he rolled an 8, which means he's not affected by the casualty die roll. That leaves him with nothing on his card. He's got food. His morale's good. I could keep negotiating because everybody's, one of the nice things right now is I know everybody's cards are depleted, right? We're late in the turn. People have played most of their bad stuff. It was kind of odd that I had an uprising in my hand. I should have played it the turn before. So doing a diplomacy or something might be fine, but I will continue with my exploration. I have a city there going into a level 2. That's fine. Level 2 isn't anything. Level 2 is not going to really help me. Chances are I come out of it with a town. I get lucky and find another city. We're running low on towns. Remember, they get to get picked up and replaced, which leaves the area like migrations or something are going on. It becomes an unexplored space again, and people could find stuff there again. I have to look at the rules for that, but I have this image of cutting somebody's supply line back home off so that they can't rapidly move back or move towards that place. It's hard to tell which way you want to go with that, right? Cutting your own supply line means that people can't rapidly reach where your good stuff is. And there's no real need to maintain a line going back home to get victory points or anything like that. So that's kind of weird. So that's the end of his turn. That city there will be helpful. It helps get me into the 3 space with no penalties. And let's see if the turn ends. It will this time. Let's try to follow the sequence of play. I'm good at doing it at the end of the game. It's just that damn random events I forget about because it doesn't happen in the first turn. And I think initiative impulses, it's just like that, man. It's like one rolls into the other and I forget there's a step in between. So now we have subsistence. Let's take a look. We eat. We have no food. Terrible. Take a morale hit for that. Oh, wait, no. I believe we take a morale check for that. Not a hit. And we look for the correct table. Okay. -1 starvation for in any -1 space. No. Malaria. So, yeah, I could actually lose a unit here. 4, it's just a morale. I got kind of lucky there. Could have lost a unit. I think I get to choose which unit, so it could be infantry. This guy, yum, 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 yum. Nobody's near an allied city, so nobody's going to be able to get food for free. This guy does. He's fine. He's in, his capital and whatnot. Over here, no food. Terrible, man. You got anything that can help you? I'm sure you don't. In a hostile city. I get a 4, that's going to be a morale hit. It goes up to 3. So the people who pushed the hardest, who kind of got to the heart of things, not necessarily by pushing that hard. He kind of did, but he really didn't. But they're the ones who all the bad cards start landing on. You get lucky and find a place early, and everybody throws their negative voodoo shit at you. And then over here, Pizarro is fine. He's in a -1 space. That is not an issue, and I don't believe it's malaria. I think malaria is only if you're in rainforests or with mosquitoes. Okay, so some of the people ate, some of them didn't. Nobody ate any of the people. And victory check, like I said, you know, we're below 10 still. But people are collecting up victory points at this point. You know, people are sitting on cities. Those are worth, what, 3 or something? 3 or 4. The Imperial City, yeah, the regular city I think is 3. The Imperial's worth 4. I don't know. And then if there were any plundered or rolled gold markers on the board, they would come off at this point. That is the end of turn 2. So this one's going up, and I'm going to go back to farming my video game.